Hey y'all, welcome back to Wealthwise Live. I'm your host Malachi Battle. This is episode 4, and I'm excited to be here with Ms. Juneil Bettis. Today's topic is the journey, real stories, and real growth. And I just want to recap the first few episodes. So the first episode, we talked about overcoming financial disadvantages. The second, we talked about the basics of financial growth. And the third, we talked about conscious spending. And so this time I want to kind of shift gears to talk about someone's actual wealth journey and how they've gone from where they used to be to where they are now. And I give Miss Bettis the floor to introduce herself and get
Hey,
acquainted with
awesome. Hey, everybody. Thank you, Malachi, for having me. My name is Juneil Bettis. I am the CEO and founder of Bettis Financial. We're a financial services firm that specializes in financial therapy. And my primary goal and mission is to help people to align their mind, money, and emotions. And so I'm so excited to be here to have this conversation with you all today.
you. Absolutely. And me too. Me too. I feel like it's important to not only educate and teach and share knowledge, but also to really highlight and show different stories. For my audience, check out my most recent post. Here lately, I have been including motivational posts because I feel like that's just as important as some of the other content that I share out. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Ms. Bettis, my first question for you is, how did you grow up? Were you particularly wealthy?
So I grew up with your common middle class family. My mother and father both work, and then I have it's a total of four of us. I have three older siblings, and I saw my mom work a lot of jobs. So we've experienced many different things. One of the things that we did experience homelessness during my upbringing. And so we did not grow up wealthy. And I think a lot of the things that I experienced in my childhood really truly led me to where I am today.
So that's a lot to unpack, and I think a lot of us can relate. So let's kind of dive into that. So, how would you say that has shaped your ambition and your drive to be where you are today?
I think it had a major impact on how it shaped my drive. Because of what I experienced as a child, I didn't want that to be my story as an adult, and so I took on the mindsets that I needed to work all of these jobs to prevent this thing from happening. I needed to try to not let become a product of my circumstances and all of those things. And so it really drove me to a place to say, okay, how can I make sure that I overcome every financial challenge and hardship that comes my way, but come out on top of it?
So you said something that is unique. I feel like I can definitely relate to you, right? The reason I started my podcast is for similar reasons. I don't want my story to be one of where I work for years and years, and at the end of it, I have nothing to show for it. But you said that you saw it as, in addition to that, you saw it as taking on several different jobs. So, mhm.
Yep. Well, at one point in time, I was working three jobs. And back when I first got on social media, my handle used to be "You can find me working." That's literally what I was doing all the time. And it was bred from it was from a place of um, trying to rewrite my story of, hey, we incurred these challenges as kids growing up. So, hey, if you don't want to be in this situation again, you need to have all of these jobs. And then I was literally working like overworking myself. Um, it to the point where you can't enjoy it, experiencing burnout, and it's like this can't be how I'm supposed to live. This can't be there's got to be a better way to
Right.
do. And I ended up just really taking a hard look at everything that I was doing and seeing like, okay, somewhere you're not managing your money the best. Somewhere you're trying to implement all of these different strategies and doing all these different things, and you got to really find out what works. And that's what literally led me down the road of saying, okay, you don't need to work all these jobs, you just need a different strategy.
Mm. And how old were you when you first started really working those jobs?
I was in college.
Okay.
So I had to be about 19. So I had my main job. Um, so I was a student athlete. So in between working and practice, I had a job on campus. I had a job off campus, and then I would work at the like nightclubs and stuff, like working the door, just taking counting the money and stuff like that would be like my little odds and ends, like gig work basically would be stuff that I would do outside of my on campus job and off campus job.
Interesting. I'm gonna give you a moment to shout out your university or college if you want to.
I went to University of Alabama Huntsville is where
Okay.
I so UAH is my
Awesome.
oh,
Awesome. My brother went to A&M. Um,
okay.
so I ended up going to Alabama, University of Alabama. Roll Tide, but
I get I get it.
right. But awesome. Okay. I feel like a lot of times when you don't grow with much, you end up having to work a lot earlier for certain things. You know, I had a friend of mine. She actually was a full time student, kind of doing a similar thing, and all the money she made she had to use to pay for school, um, and that's a unique challenge in itself. And then you had three jobs, so I can really see kind of where the burnout happens. You know, one thing that I definitely have learned is that it's not always equivalent to working harder. I think a lot of times people who don't have much are often told, "Hey, just work harder, go harder, do harder." But that's not necessarily the solution. And you kind of touched on it. You realize like, hey, I can't have these experiences if I'm going to be working myself. A lot of times I'll talk to my dad. He's a big advocate for experience. His mindset is it doesn't matter how much money you have, you need to enjoy your life. You
Yes.
know, and so I kind of want you to elaborate kind of on you regrouped. You was like, I'm doing too much, and how you figured out a different path forward.
So I figured out a different path forward from the job that I took. My off-campus job ended up taking a job at a bank, and during that time, I started to learn different things about finances that I didn't know. And I was like, okay, I would come across wealthy people, and I would ask them questions like, how did you get started? How did you get to the place that you're at? And they would give me different tips, and they say, oh, you're young, you need to do this. Oh, you're in college, so look at this, and try to implement these different things while you can now. And during that time, I took every training and every workshop that the company would send me to. I went, and
Mm,
I started to learn so much more about the different ways to manage my finances, and like I talked about, like I wanted to be able to have different experiences. And how could I experience life if I was always at work?
right.
And so I eventually let go of those jobs, the extra jobs, and just focused on getting my degree, and then still keeping the job at the bank.
Mm,
And that's literally how I started to work towards the path that I'm on today. Taking what things that I learned, people that paths I crossed that they shared, a wealth of knowledge. I mean, you only need about 5-10 minutes of someone's time, and you can get some really good information that you can apply directly for your life. And I ended up having a mentor, and one of the things that she said,
mm,
anytime you get in a room with someone, ask them what they're reading. And so that would be
that's a
some of
good
my first
question.
questions I would ask. Hey, can you tell me what book you're reading? I'll go and read those same things, because it's like, again, the knowledge that you have when you learn it firsthand for yourself is so powerful
It
for you to
is.
be able to apply in your own life. And so that's what I started. I started applying all of the stuff I was learning to my own life, and then it just transformed into helping others do that as well.
It absolutely is. I actually just finished a book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, version 2. by Ramit Sethi. Y'all don't get on me if I said his name wrong, but I'm pretty sure I said it right. And I would agree, it's the first-hand knowledge that you really can kind of decide and choose for yourself instead of being told what to think or do with said information. And I think that kind of shifts the working perspective to the right place. I think people, so they'll say, hey, you don't have enough, work harder. But really they mean educate yourself. And in that education does come a lot of work because you have to read that book. I think that book, between actively reading it, dissecting it to make sure I understand it, and then going further to apply the knowledge in that book at a base level, took me a few months.
Yes.
Right. And there's still a lot from that book that I want to apply, but it's going to take me time. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in with first generation people who are striving to learn financial literacy, is the amount of time that it actually takes to learn and to read those books. I want to ask you, how long would you say it took you to where you felt, financially versed, somewhat comfortable to make certain financial decisions?
I think, in all honesty, maybe about 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Because I had to unlearn a lot of stuff that I saw growing up. The way that I thought about money, the way I interacted with money, the way I managed it, all that was taught to me. And either whether you think your parents are teaching you or not, you are indirectly or directly learning from the environment that you grow up in. And so I had to go through the process, and I still go through that process with different things. In different seasons, different things come up. Unlearning what I thought about money, how I viewed it, the perspective I had behind it, and then implementing all the new things that I was learning so that I could have a new path forward with what I like to say, rewriting my money story. And in rewriting it, you start to uncover, like, okay, I don't have the best relationship with money. I don't like how I think about it. I don't like how when I get paid, I feel like my money's gone quickly. And just all of these different things that I started noticing growing up. So in reality, it took me about 2 to 3 years for me to get the level of confidence that I felt like that I was doing a better place with my finances.
I agree, and I'm going to take this opportunity to plug the Wealthwise Mindset Guide, y'all. Look in my link tree on my Instagram page. I wrote an 11-page guide, and part of it actually talks about this because I thought, okay, hey, I graduated school, I got a full-time job, and that's big. But there's a lot there. I thought I was going to immediately change my financial situation, and that's just not the truth. It's not reality. In fact, it took me a few months, one, to even understand certain financial jargon. It took me a couple more months to actually understand where I wanted to put my money toward. And it took me a few more months to actually create the systems to put my money there. And I'm still at the beginning stage. We can say that I'm a little seedling that's sprouting out of the ground, right? Before I become a tree, it takes years to become a tree and to be knowledgeable, right? So I can definitely agree with that, and I think that helps a lot of us actually manage our expectations. I initially was like, hey, I'm finna come in, change everything, boom. No, that's not that's not reality. There's a lot that you have to actually unlearn and kind of reteach yourself. And so what are some of the first things that you had to unlearn that you would say, like the big blockbusters?
The first thing I had to unlearn was that I needed to have a system for my money. I didn't see that growing up. You hear a lot of different sayings. Oh, money don't grow on trees, or I gotta rob Peter to pay Paul. Kind of things like, what does any of that mean? And I never saw, like, in my household, we didn't talk about money. There were no conversations or real language concerning money. There was no talk about budgeting, any of that. And so the first thing that I noticed was that I needed a system in place. And what does that look like for me in my household on a day-to-day basis? And so that was the first thing I had to unlearn. Not having a system, was not going to help me, but having a system in place, whether that be my budget, physical budget, whether that's an app, or simply put, maybe I'm just want to. Some people do very well with keeping it in their head. I'm not one of those
Some
people.
people do.
I need to physically see it like on paper, and figuring out what systems worked for my finances. Where did I want to bank? Because for so long I had an account with my parents. Well, I don't need them to be on the account. I need to be in control and managing it on my own, and not feeling like I have them as a crutch to rely on. And so I just needed to be able to see that I could stand on my own concerning my finances. And so, again, unlearning all of those different things that I saw growing up, even the mindset around it, grew up in a very scarcity, poverty mindset, and relearning how to think about money in a healthy way.
So, one of the biggest things I agree is the system, right? Learning that you need a system. Can you kind of elaborate as to how important maybe you would see allocation as in actively deciding where your money's going to go? Things like choosing a bank account, things like having savings and investment platforms, things like that.
I think, again, it's going to start with research, because every platform offers something different, and no platforms are all the same. They have some similar features, but your goals to what you choose for your system is going to be what leads you to go with whichever platform you want to use to allocate to what and where and how much and all of that. And so for me, I went with the ones that I felt like I could grow with, where I actually built a relationship with the people that were part of the platform. So if I'm choosing a bank, it was important to me to have a relationship with my banker. I want to only talk to them when something's wrong. I want to talk to them about my goals and how I can grow my money. Where should I invest it? What's some of the hot topics that's been coming up in their wealth advisory meetings and things like that. So it's like I want to be able to know that I'm on the same trajectory as one of their wealth clients. And if I'm just a normal everyday client coming in, I want to be on the same trajectory as your wealth clients. So what conversations are you guys having over there that I need to be having here? And it may just simply start with what's my financial goals. And so those were some of the things that I started to really take a look at when I was choosing platforms. I looked at how I was treated. I got recommendations from others, and then I asked a lot of questions like, well, I told you whenever I came in contact with someone wealthy, it's like, okay, where do you bank at? Why did you choose that? What platforms do you use? How much did you allot? Like, what percentages work for you? And then not, taking what I learned and seeing how to apply it to my own life. So one person told me, like, hey, try to they were teaching me how to live below my means. And it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? Because I know that I usually spend all my money when I get it, So it's like, practically, how do I do those things to make sure that I come out to where I want to be? And it all just boiled back to what were my goals at that time and what systems and processes that I needed to have in place right then.
Right. So one of the themes in the book is how we need systems because we are lazy. And I think one of the biggest mindset changes for me was how much you should think about money. Money, by all means, should not be the number one thing that you think about at all. But it is something that somewhat needs your consistent attention. And I think that's a big mindset shift from those who have not grown up with much. Money is kind of an afterthought when you don't have it. And then when you have it, it's spend. And so for me, I would say learning how not to say, okay, I got all this money, let me go spend it, let me go buy all this stuff, and say, hey, I got this money, let me apply it toward my actual goals. Um, I strongly believe that even those who who don't make much, come across some extra income from time to time. And simply because we don't know where our money is going to go, and because we don't have systems and goals and plans, we end up 20 years later, 30 years later with nothing. And I refuse to believe, and I think we all should, that there's no way we didn't have an extra dollar to put in an investment account.
Yes.
And so I think that's where the mindset shift really has to change, and the emphasis on deciding those goals. So one of the things I talk about in the guide is conscious spending, and that's what most recent episode was about. And it is for that exact reason. I in the last episode I mentioned how I had an internship and I made a good bit of money, and I don't have any of that money now. And that bygones, it's not a big deal. But had I known how to actually apply that toward my goals, think about how much further we could be.
Absolutely.
And so that gets me to the entrepreneurial mindset and drive. So
Yes.
one topic I have been thinking about lately is subsidizing bits and pieces of your income with entrepreneurial endeavors. So let's say you have a traditional job, right? Let's say you make a goal to make $50 extra somehow, some way throughout the month, and you can put that toward, an investment account or a savings account, etc. But I know you are the CEO and founder of Bettis Financial, so it seems like you've made that journey from, okay, let me learn about these finances. Took you a few years until you were like, hey, I'm comfortable, and now you're the CEO and founder of Bettis Financial. So how'd you do that?
So interesting journey. I did not have any aspirations to be an entrepreneur. I thought that after I graduated college, I was just going, get me a good job, work my way up the ladder, and I was going to retire at that point. But God had other plans for my life, and so I worked in corporate finance for 8 years. I ended up started feeling like something needs to change, not feeling like as fulfilled, and I ended up going to like a business workshop, and at the time I did not have a business, and I'll go up to this lady afterwards and I asked her, will she mentor me? And she says, well, what do you do? And I was like, nothing, I don't have a business. And she was like, well, I don't know what I would do. Yes, I don't know how you would do with me either, but I feel like you're supposed to be my mentor, and I'm just gonna, move forward with that. And so she ended up watching me a couple of weeks just to see if I was serious, because I kept following up. And we had our first meeting, and she was like, I need your business name by Friday. And I'm still working my corporate job, and I'm like, well, it's not a business. I just help people on the side with their finances. And so it's not a business. And I ended up, she didn't pay that any mind, right? She really pushed me to like think beyond the space and place that I was in. And ended up sending her a list of names. And first list, she didn't like any of those. Second list, just, okay, that's it. Bettis Financial was at the top of that list, and I was like, okay, this is for. I'm gonna move forward with. I don't know what this looks like. I don't have a blueprint. I don't have a plan for it because I didn't consider it to be a business. Just something I was passionate about doing. Wanting to teach people the things that I had learned over those 8 years. Wanted to make sure that I was able to give back in that way, and so got on a live that same week that she helped me with my business name, and I got my first 5 clients from that. And so usually when you get your first clients, it's like, okay, I'm not sure how all this is going to work. And again, like I said, I didn't have aspirations that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then things started to change in me. And I think, again, when you get in different circles, you get around different people, they challenge you to think differently.
Right.
And so my thought process started to become different. And it's like, okay, well, they're saying that you're capped out at the amount you can make here, you've maxed out in bonuses, all of these different things. And it's like, why do I have to have these limitations placed on myself when entrepreneurship says that, hey, it's unlimited and I can make and do and be and grow like I need to. And so one day ended up, I talked with my husband and I said, okay, it's time. And I took the leap. Now, when I took the leap, I did not have what I felt like was a sufficient amount of clients. I didn't have a large amount of money saved up to. Now, everybody's journey to entrepreneurship is different. And so if I could go back and do it, I would structure some things differently. But my journey was how it was supposed to be. Led us to where we are today. But that's neither here nor there. So I end up taking the leap, and the first couple of months was, maybe the first 2-3 years was probably some of the hardest times. I took the leap, and then COVID happened. So I had spent time building the business, getting used to transitioning from having a 9-to-5 to getting the clients, and then 2 years after my leap, COVID happened. Lost all my clients. I'm like, okay, what do we do now? Because this is my income. Things look different, and so I ended up pivoting from solely working with individuals to businesses, and well, that's how the business just continued to evolve. And so I literally said, where my clients were in one area of their life, we just continued to pick up and grow with them. And so that's how Bettis Financial got birthed. We literally take the journey with our clients, whether it's in their personal finances, business finances, getting ready, prepared for retirement, whatever that may need to look like. We're on the journey with them. And so that's how my road to entrepreneurship happened.
And I think that is so key in terms of moving forward. I was doing more research. I've been doing a lot of research. There's only so much you can cut expenses. Your mortgage or your rent is always going to be the same. So you can't cut everything out to where you just pay for rent or you won't have any other extra money, right? There's only so much you can cut out getting a smoothie or a coffee or a drink. In fact, I think you should be able to get as many of those as you want. And there becomes a limit for those who don't have much, to where you have to figure out how to make more money.
Yes.
And it's possible regardless of your educational background. It's all about how you think. You said it yourself. You didn't have any aspirations of being an entrepreneur, but being around certain people helps you to think differently. You really can create opportunities for yourself. And I think a lot of us are so limited because that's one of the mindsets that we are not taught for those who don't grow up with much.
Yep.
We are kind of stuck on that system of going to work, getting a job, and coming home. Can you talk about some of the more nuanced challenges that you had in that transition as far as your mindset? How long did it take you to actually say, hey, I'm going to do it? And were you always fully in? Did you ever think about not continuing and going the other way?
So it took me a while to come into agreement that this is going to be a part of my life. And no, I was not always fully in. I even went back and got a job because I was like, no, this is not working. I was used to having consistent income, getting paid every 2 weeks, all of that. And again, that's a mindset that has to get broken. You're used to this happening, and then when you go to being an entrepreneur, you don't know if you're going to get paid every week. There's so many different factors that nobody likes to talk to you about. Well, what happens if your clients pay late or they don't pay at all? Or what happens if the system goes down and you can't fulfill your obligations or work? Or what happens if your computer breaks? Or just things that you don't think about when you go into a 9 to 5, because that's somebody else's problem. But when you become the owner and the founder of these things, it's all your problem. You know, we're making enough. Do we have enough clients? Do the system work? Do the processes, all that? So it took me a while to get adjusted to even what this was supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And even after I got adjusted to it, I got afraid of it. Got afraid, and I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I feel like I'm not the best at this. So the easy thing that I know to do is to go back into the corporate world. And so I said I was going to go back for only 3 months. And then I tried to blame it on my husband, like, oh, my husband and I are on the same page. And he's more comfortable if I have a 9 to 5, because I feel like I'm contributing to our bills and things, or whatever I want to feel like I need to contribute to at home. Well, it had absolutely nothing to do with it. It was all me and what I was comfortable with. And I spent what was supposed to be a couple of months. I ended up staying in a place for 2 years that I'm not supposed to be in. So I'm still working the business, but I'm on a job that I'm not supposed to be in. And so I had to make a decision at that point. It's like, okay, are you going to really be 100% in? Like, give this your absolute best. Don't have 1 foot over here, 1 foot over here, and dividing your time between what you know you're supposed to be doing. I knew I was supposed to be working my business full time. I knew that was where I was being led to be, in the place I was supposed to be in. But fear and my mindset of the unfamiliar, uncertainty, not sure what this looks like, caused me to be delayed in some of the areas that I was supposed to have been passed already.
Right. And I think that is probably one of the number one top, if not number one, top 3 challenges in terms of overcoming financial struggles. It is the fear of stepping out and doing something new, doing something that you're not comfortable with, because, what if you fail? What if it doesn't work? And I feel like in everything else in life, we figure it out.
Yes. Me too.
Uh-huh.
We do. We figure it out. And for some reason, when it comes to like finances, we like, oh, I'm going to mess this up. Well, how are you going to mess it up if you've never tried?
Exactly.
Try. So, yeah.
And a lot of the recent posts I have made are all about trying. So
yes.
The other day I talked about how your brain is going to attack you. It's going to say, hey, no, we can't do this. But it's all a response to fear. Because when you grow, there's going to be pain. And people don't like pain. So the brain does everything it can do to avoid pain. There's a book I read. It's called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Not a racist book. It's just a play on a black male in the 60s where he is able to overcome racial barriers. And he started his own business in New York, and it took him several years, I think on the magnitude of 6 or 7, till he had a stable income, but he stayed persistent with it, and then he had his first $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? And I think it's all about being able to transform your mind. Most of us, it's not a skill issue. It's a mental barrier. It's a mental issue. Even with me starting the podcast. Malachi, why did you start the podcast? Well, I started the podcast because I don't want to end up like what I've seen. Well, do you know how to do a podcast? Are you a social media person? Or do you make content on the internet? How are you going to get guests? Right?
Yep.
But none of those questions are reasons not to do something.
Absolutely.
And in addition to learning those financial skills, it's also learning how are you going to make more. And I think of course, you've done a great job, right?
Yes.
um, what kind of, I would say, like relief and sense of fulfillment do you have since you overcame that? And now you're doing it, business is going well.
So it was a relief. I think once we got through year
Mm,
three when I was like, okay, this is for real. Like we are really moving forward with this. And the relief came when I started to hear clients' testimonies of
mm,
work that
okay,
we were doing, seeing them accomplish some of the goals, seeing their mindset change, and hearing their language and how they reacted to their finances, and then the things that they were implementing with their children. And so that for me was when I feel like the relief came that hey, the work we're doing is working.
mm,
You got to remain consistent. You got to keep showing up, even on the days that you don't feel like it, even
right,
on the days that it gets hard.
right,
And then from there, it just started to be, I started to notice that my clients, because we walk with them on the journey, they would reach different milestones and something else, it would be a new need. And
mm,
so it's like, hey, do you do this? Because we want you to do this. And so my business continued to grow because
right,
my clients had different needs. And so I would always be in a position to like, sometimes like when people say, "Oh, you should do this, you should do this," and I'm not one of those people just let people put stuff on me
mm,
to tell me to do. It's like, is that something I want to do? Does that align with the vision and the goals
mm,
that company is supposed to have? And then if it is, then it's like, okay, how do we do this with the right way? Do we have the proper systems in place to
right,
support the growth and the structure and the things that people are asking? And over time, it's just we just continue to build upon everything that we do, and then probably by year 5 is when we really started to see it was no longer like, are we going to make all of our bills? It's like, okay, we are actually seeing a profit
yeah,
every. We are everything is okay, and then you get to another level and say, okay, I got to get introduced to new people
mm,
to help me with my mindset. Got to go up higher, even
right,
more, because where I was when I first started is not the place that I'm in now. So
no,
I got another I had another mentor that came along, and she's been with me these last 3 years. And the last 3 years of the business. So we've been in business for 8 years now. These past 3 years, we've seen the most significant growth, and I
awesome,
think it attributes to myself as a leader,
mm,
being open to having different mindsets, getting into different rooms. I'm still asking questions. I ask questions
right,
all the time. I'm an avid learner. I love to read. I love to research all of those different things. But it does. I feel like for me, it does no good to learn all these things, make all this money, and then you don't have an impact that you're happy with.
right,
Um, and so I would do what I do for free if I could, right?
right,
But um, because I operate a business, it's like, okay, I can see the fruit of what I do in the
mm,
conversations I have. But then also, it started with me. Am I doing the things that I'm telling my clients to do? And I have to course correct myself at times as well. It's like just because you reach one level doesn't mean that you're perfect in everything
yes,
that you finances. It's an active daily work for myself to continue to maintain not only where we are, but where I know that we're trying to go to.
right, and I think that's one of the mental things that can almost kind of feel stressful when you realize it, but you always have to keep learning. There is no stopping. There is no, all right, I figured it out, I'm reading. There is no, just put your head down and do the work. No, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that's changing your mindset, you always have to consistently be reading. You have to be talking to people. You have to be learning. And I think that's another pillar or a mindset that those who are struggling financially especially from backgrounds like ours, that is one piece that they're lacking. I'll talk to a lot of people who are struggling, and I'll say, hey, you know, have you read any books about it? No. Well then, you can't, in some ways, you can't complain. Or let's say you get somewhere and you kind of plateau. Why'd you
Yep.
plateau? When's the last time you read a book? When's the
Yep.
last time you strove to have conversations? And so I was actually going to ask you, I was like, are you still reading like you were when you initially started? And you said that you are. Um,
Yes.
but I'm imagining, or I'm assuming, and I would also ask, the conversations that you're able to have are on a different level, right? Because you understand much more.
Yes. And so I had to pull back on some of the stuff I was reading,
Mm,
because it can almost become overload. Um, so to the point where you're not having really enough time to digest all the content information that you learned prior.
mm,
Um, Start another thing to read. And so when I entered into doing financial therapy, you read a lot of books. It's like right, the book I'm currently reading right now is The Psychology of Money.
mm,
And um, but before that, I was probably reading about 2, 3 different finance books. And so I found everything I was reading was business and finance, business and finance. And so one of my mentors said, you need balance.
mm,
Balance to what you're reading, what you're consuming, because you're in finance and business stuff all day. So when you come home and you're winding down, that's what you're reading. And that doesn't wind me down, it winds me up. So I had to begin to implement things that didn't have anything to do with finance. Books that would just kind of like mellow me out so that my mind could really rest and think on what I had learned and the things that I had um, encountered for that day, so that I could really start to put things into practice. Um, because again, a lot of good information is just good information until you actually do something with it. And so
yes.
that's the road I was traveling on. Got a lot of good information, but I'm not practically putting anything in place because I'm just piling more information on top of what I'm already learning.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. So we've been having a really good conversation, but we have made it to our quick fire segment.
Okay.
So these are all the questions that you answer in 60 seconds or less. And then after this, we're going to do our audience Q&A. We actually have a couple questions already in the live chat, so I'm excited to be able to ask all these questions. But quick fire question number one: how do you encourage yourself when it comes to your own finances?
I do daily affirmations. It's not a day that goes by. I try to remain consistent. Sometimes I get off, but I daily I say something positive about my finances.
Mm,
So if I'm in a hard place or I'm in a place where I'm trying to navigate through something that I've never been in before,
mm,
my affirmations is what keeps me encouraged. And
awesome.
it's really they're really simple. It's like I'm wealthy. I manage my finances well. I am a good steward over my finances.
Mm,
So just things to keep me encouraged and uplift me if whatever place I'm in. So that's how I keep myself encouraged.
that's great. I think daily affirmations are underrated, right? Like they it's surprising how much something, seemingly as small as that can encourage you. Quick fire question number two: what's one thing you wish someone had told you before you started your journey?
I wish someone would have told me that I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes, and it's not gonna. I will recover from the mistakes, but it's not gonna be overnight. It's
Mm,
one would have helped set my expectations, that I'm gonna make those mistakes, and it's not gonna be something that changes in 24 hours, even though you want it to. So
mm.
that's what I wish someone would have told me before I started.
Boy, that's a good one. I had not thought of that, but that I'll be thinking about that. And quick fire question number three: what's a topic you'd like to leave viewers with to go explore after this episode?
I would tell viewers to research how to steward wealth. It's one thing to obtain it, but it's a whole nother ball game to maintain it and steward it properly. So that I would tell viewers to go and research how to steward wealth.
I agree. That I will be looking at that. That's what I've been looking at. But I will definitely be looking at that. Thank you. Thank you. Quick fire segment is done. So now we'll open it up to the audience for a few questions, just a Q&A. And you have one from Karen Battle. And her question is, in your opinion, what's the number one mindset shift someone needs to go from surviving to building wealth?
I think the first shift that needs to happen is one, understand. So when you go from surviving to thriving, is that I'm coming out of survival mode. So realizing that, first I acknowledge where I am, but this is not the place I'm gonna always be. And I think how do you come out of that is that you gotta see yourself out of surviving. One of the ways you see yourself out of surviving is what you say and what you speak about your current situation.
Right.
That begins to change how you feel about it, how you talk about it, how you interact in the situation. And so if I'm moving from a place of survival to thriving, then everything, my words are going to align with I am thriving, right? So thriving is different, looks different for each and every person. What does thriving look like? We know what surviving looks like, but in your relationship with your finances and your goals that you have, what does that actually look like practically? And then what do you need to begin to put in place with that?
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think it always starts with a mindset.
Yes.
As long as that mindset maintains, you get being able to see,
Yes.
And then a follow-up question from that is, what's one money habit that people think is helping them, but is actually keeping them stuck financially?
One money habit that people think is helping them. You know what I would say? I really think it boils down to these buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
People think that, because I'm not spending all of the money on this particular item, that this is helping me. When in actuality, it's hurting you because you're still purchasing something that you technically cannot afford at the time.
Right.
And so it breeds the mindset that, hey, I can go ahead and purchase this now without having all of the resources to get another thing. But in actuality, it could be that, hey, why don't I just save up the money until I can actually purchase it all outright and not have to have all of these different amounts coming out of my account at one time because I'm purchasing things that I really can't afford to at the moment.
Right. Okay.
I really think it hurts us in a way because, again, it's one of those things we have to ask ourselves, is this something that I need or is this a want? And if it's something that I need, then how do I need it immediately, or it still can be a need, but maybe I don't need it today. I may need this 6 months from now. Well, in 6 months from now, I could just save the money for it.
Right. I agree 100% with that. And correction, that was Carrie Battle, not Karen. Now, so I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I do have a couple more final questions before we go into the Wealthwise tips that you would like to leave the viewers with. But so a little bit on your services. How do you go about helping people in tough financial situations? And what are some of the services that you offer?
So the first thing, one of the things we go about, so we do free consultations. No one person's finances are the same. So we start with a free consultation to see where the person is, to see how we can help. And then to see if we're a good fit for one another. Because you're just not a fit for everybody, and that's okay. But the next step would be, depending on where they are, if they have some traumas that they've associated with their finances, then we start them with financial therapy. And people tend to be like, well, what's financial therapy? I didn't know I could go to therapy for my finances. Yes, you can. You actually can. And one of the things that we work on is your mindset, how you think about your money, interactions you may have had, the habits and behaviors that you encounter with your finances. And so we offer that. We also do, for business owners, we do personal and business taxes. We also do bookkeeping, and then we do workshops. I think one of the things that the community can really impacted by is financial literacy. And so we love getting out in the community, answering questions, being available to help give back in a way. An hour of pouring into someone financially, asking them, letting them ask questions, and getting knowledge and information, I think can change. You help one person in the family, it literally can change a generation.
You really can. And everyone, if you would like to reach out to Miss Bettis, her page is linked in my on my Instagram page, and it's at the bottom of the live screen. But it looks like we got another question pop up. But yes, if you all are interested in learning more about what she does, definitely feel free to reach out there. But we have one more question from Zadok's threads, and they are: what are some things you do to bounce around on goals to avoid burnout and lessen the plateaus?
Some of the things that I do to bounce around on my goals is, how people say, like, uh, if if you haven't completed, you need to go ahead and scratch it off your list. Like, if it's taking you a long time, I'm not one of those people. So one of the ways that I achieve my goals without like plateauing or going to burnout, I just focus on one thing at a time.
Mm.
Sometimes people say, do like your top five. I can have in my mind the top five I want to accomplish, but what's the one thing this month I want to accomplish?
Mm.
And so I focus on one at a time so that it limits my burnout, because I'm one of those people that I used to be like, I need to accomplish all of these goals this month, and I'm trying to actively work to accomplish all these things, and I experienced burnout. I got to the end of the year and literally was sick and had absolutely nothing left to give. And I said, I don't ever want to get into that place again. So I had to readjust, and I focus on one goal at a time. I give myself 30 days to accomplish that thing. So each week I have a task associated with that goal. If I get to the end of the month and I haven't completed, guess what happened? That goal goes over to the next month, because hopefully I would have made some progress towards that goal so it can be completed. and the good thing is like, our mind needs to see us completing things. So having a checklist or something each week that I can actually mark off done creates a behavior that allows me to say, hey, I can keep going in my finances. I accomplished this, and this week or this month. So I take it one goal at a time. Not everybody, that's probably not everybody's thing, but I've done it the way of trying to focus on so many goals at one time, and it led me to.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
That is great advice. Thank you for sharing that. So, with that being said, we are on our final portion, which is your 5 Wealthwise tips. As we do, it's the staple for all the guests, right? I like to ask that they leave our audience with 5 Wealthwise tips. So you can share those now.
Okay, so my tip number 1 is that schedule time with your money. It matters. I schedule mine on Mondays. It's called Money Monday. This is the time that I see what's coming in, what's going out, and really reassess where I am in my finances. Number 2, is wealth without wellness is still poverty. So we have to make sure that we are not emotionally, spiritually empty, or mentally empty when it comes to managing our money. True wealth is peace. Nobody gets all this money and not want to have peace. So wealth without wellness is still poverty. Number 3, make room for rest in your financial plan. Again, I've been in a place before where I did all this work and I was not really resting or living or enjoying life. And so we got to make room for rest in our financial plan. And that may look like, so on Fridays is my Sabbath day. It's that I try not to do any work. It's just a time to just unwind. I do my self-care, all of those things on Fridays. Number 4, your mindset is a multiplier. And so if you believe that there's never enough, guess what's going to happen? It's never
enough.
So operating from a place of scarcity, even in abundance, can be a real thing. And so we have to make sure that we have the mindset that I am going to change the picture that I have in my mind concerning my money. And then number 5, vision is a wealth building strategy. I'm going to say that one again. Vision is a wealth building strategy. If I don't know or I can't define what my vision is for my life, then I can have all the money in the world and I still won't be happy because I don't have a vision. I just got a lot of money.
Right.
So, what legacy do you want to leave for your family, your children's children? What are you building? What does that need to look like? Wealth isn't just about accumulating. I don't want to have a lot of things. Wealth is an assignment. And once you're clear and you understand what your assignment is and how you play a part in that, walking out the vision is the fun part of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely awesome episode. And I want to thank you for taking your time to join the podcast today and sharing everything in all honesty. I know I've learned a lot. I think this is an absolutely wonderful addition to the episodes. Hope that somebody will be able to come back and listen to this and really learn from it. I know I've definitely learned some things just based off some of the discussion we've had. I need to be more intentional about doing certain things and making sure that I'm taking my time reading these books. I think I kind of got a little bit of the same piece you had going on, where it's like so much going on but not really digesting. So I'll make sure that I take heed to that. And with that being said, once again, if you want to reach out to Ms. Bettis or take a look at her page, it is linked into the actual post on my page or the episode announcement. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me. Got to plug the Wealthwise Mindset Guide again. It's in my link tree. And as always, master your money and secure your future. Wealthwise Live.
Bye. Thank you for having me.